This week on Audiobook Club, the story of the first blind man ever to get to the top of Mount Everest.
On a past training climb, I had made the mistake of bragging to my teammates that I could sense when we were over a hidden crevasse by the soft, tremulous feel of the snow and the slightly hollow thunk made by my bootsteps. So they had decided to test my claim by pushing me forward and making me lead across the notoriously suspect snowfield below our 14,000-foot camp. "This'll teach you to brag, super blind guy," Jeff, a close friend and one of my teammates, called out as he and the others crept along behind, keeping taut the 150-foot climbing rope connecting us. The dry, bitter wind roared across the surface of the glacier, rattling through my Gore-Tex. I stepped cautiously, listening, as I slowly brought down the full weight of each step, forcing myself to breathe in rhythm. What were the chances of me stumbling upon a hidden crevasse, I thought, in this place at this moment? I probed a trekking pole in front of me. Initially it held, but suddenly it popped through the styrofoam snow into emptiness, with me swooning forward, the pole sliding through to the handle. Then I heard it, the terrifying noise that climbers dread, the slit of a knife across the glacier and increasing to a loud zipper. I had heard this noise before, the sound of ice fracturing, breaking apart, and zigzagging across the frozen ground, but I had never been so near. The snow around me collapsed with a whoomp. The muscles in my legs turned to putty, and the rope stretched tighter as the team braced. I felt the lurch of my body and the snow beneath me dropping away, and I knew at once I had broken through. I could feel the air all around me, filling the space under my feet, along my legs, and against my face. Jeff yelled something, but his voice quickly faded in the rushing snow and gear that came with me.
Hello, I'm Steve Phillips and welcome to another episode of Audiobook Club, an interactive audiobook recommendation and review podcast lovingly made by artisans with only ethically sourced organic ingredients in a shed using a still made out of a hosed out dustbin. On this episode, we'll be reviewing Touch the Top of the World, a self-penned memoir by the first blind person ever to reach the top of Mount Everest, Erik Weihenmayer. Joining me down the line from Adelaide, as ever, in Australia, because Adelaide will always be in Australia, but he's here as well to help me in this double-headed endeavour. It's the person who gave me this week's title again as a gift. It's Matt Layton. Hello, Matt.
Hello, Steve. Should we go straight into our notes from the margin feature then?
Yes, if you can, that'd be great.
Can I just say the best thing about our first show back after a little break last week? You won it again. I came up with the idea of calling the feature where we discuss things about listening to audiobooks or consuming audiobooks as Notes in the Margin, and then you instantly changed it on the fly to Notes from the Margin, which has an entirely different meaning and is brilliant. So, having said that, I have now received my first... We were talking about giving and receiving audiobooks as gifts, and I have now received, for the first time ever, an audiobook as a gift. And I was delighted, not only by the fact that somebody gave me something, but it was you, and you gave me Fibber in the Heat, was it called?
Fibber in the Heat by Jupp, yeah.
Which I consumed instantly.
Oh, good.
I am not a fan of cricket. I think it's one of the most tedious endeavours on earth.
Cut his mic. Cut his mic. You're in Australia.
I know. Tell me about it. There are certain times of the year where I go very quiet over here and you know, I get a bit of ribbing from the natives and I go, yes, you are doing very well. Well done.
I wonder why I didn't get much of a response every time I sent you emails and texts saying, got to book tickets for the World T20 before COVID, and obviously the whole thing changed anyway, but that all makes sense now because you didn't really reply very much, and I just disregarded it really. But now I know.
Don't take it personally. So apparently when the Ashes come here once every 4 years, Uncle Greg and his friends do go to the cricket, but they spend most of the time drinking Bloody Marys made of homemade vodka out the back of somebody's ute in the car park because the drinks in the venue are too expensive. So if you want to get sunstroke and dehydration and all sorts of other bother, then please do come down. Apparently it's the best 5 days of your life. But the cricket itself doesn't really interest me. But back to this book. This is what we're talking about.
Many years ago, we said we wouldn't overrun this week, yeah.
Yeah, there's a... The cricketing stuff, there's one point in chapter 1. I think we should review this book. I think it's worth a full show. But I have to...
yeah. It's quite an old one now. I gave it to you out of, because I thought you might enjoy the book, not because it's the latest release or we should review it. But obviously, if, dear listener, you have heard Fibber in the Heat, it's, well, tell everyone what you thought, actually, Matt.
Yeah, well, I'm not going to tell anybody what I thought, except I thought there were bits where I wanted to smash it with a cricket bat because of I was engaged in an interesting story, and then somebody would be edged by a silly mid-floppy to the hands of... I just didn't...
You clearly turned to a different book there, I think.
It was over-edged on the crinkly. I just those bits I didn't get. When it suddenly went into cricket language, I couldn't have been more bored. But the story of Miles Jupp touring around India was great. And I think it's in the diary for 2 weeks' time, I think we need to do a show about should Audiobook Club, does it have to be all the latest new releases, or can it be like any other book club where people turn up with their favourite books? I think that's a discussion you and I need to have, and we probably need to have it in this forum as well.
Yeah, talking to each other and hopefully involving the listener.
Yes.
Has anyone tweeted yet? No. It's a barren desert out there, isn't it, Twitter? Which is odd, really, given what everyone says about it.
Well, it's because you and I are broadly positive on Twitter. My resolution is don't say anything rude on Twitter. Be positive about the whole.
Well, I'm glad to see we're both very 2008 about Twitter, because when we first picked up Twitter, it was a lovely journey of discovery, and everyone was nice to each other, and it was all great.
You taught me everything I knew on Twitter. I got a career out of the Steve Phillips training session on Twitter, and I can't thank you enough for that.
It's a mug's game.
Charlie Brooker, who gets referenced on this show occasionally, he did one of those top 50 countdowns of the best computer games ever, didn't he? He put Grand Theft Auto at number 2 and then put Twitter at number 1 as the best computer game ever. And that's essentially what it was at the time. Now it's just a cauldron of bile.
Yeah. That's it.
As you say, we still think it's 2008. We say nice things and try and make a little joke and assume that people will see or hear it. And nobody ever does. So.
Nobody ever does, but that's okay with us.
As
long as you know it's not, as long as you don't know it's there. That's all that matters.
You will be glad to hear, Steve, that not only did I read this book, I have started binging the box set. I'm now on my second Miles Jupp book, and I am doing his book history. And I've also, a mate of mine is having a bit of a rough time at the moment. Hello, Phil. So I sent him a copy of it as a gift yesterday.
Oh, good.
Your generosity has spawned more generosity.
Oh, well, I'm so pleased I'm spawning. That's great. That's great to hear, because actually, I don't know how to phrase this question. Being as you've given and received.
You lost the plot.
Which one do you prefer? Yes. Oh, I'm so sorry. Please cut this bit out.
No,
so childish.
No,
really
we can't.
Bad.
No, I refuse. You said it now. It's canon now.
Oh, great.
There's a little bit here where I have another friend who is sometimes... This could turn into something bad with you and me constantly giving each other stuff.
Indeed.
I think I've written down the word alpha males here, but the idea of competitively giving each other audiobooks. I'm going to give you a better audiobook than the one you just gave me.
I'm going to give you a 25-hour mega book. Yeah.
Which is, again, more of a burden than a joy.
War and Peace coming your way.
Yes, read by Stephen Fry. Oh, God.
Oh, there's a talking point for later, clearly, Stephen Fry.
Can we park that? Because I'm in quite
We'll park that. We promised a shorter podcast, yeah.
Yeah, I'm in quite a good mood. Let's park the Stephen Fry.
Okay.
But the whole idea of aggressive hospitality or generosity. Have another cocktail. I'm worried that we might sink into that if we keep giving each other stuff, and it becomes a competition.
You're right. And it might leave a sour taste in the mouth of the listener, and the sour taste in the ear, if you can get sour ears, ahead of what is actually, wow, what a lovely book that we're about to review here.
Okay, shall we?
Yeah, let's do this.
I wanted them to put their lives in my hands, as I would put mine in theirs. I would carry my share. I would contribute as any other team member. I would not be carried up the mountain and spiked on top like a football. If I were to reach the summit, I would reach it with dignity. The things I could not do, I would let go. But the things I could do, I would learn to do well.
So, tell us about this week's tome, Matt.
Well, Steve, as you and I are sort of trying to start this new regime where we record Audiobook Club every week, I always say I was feeling a little lazy, but I needed an efficient way to work. So what I've done is I've cross-pollinated with my day job. The book we're doing this week is called Touch the Top of the World, A Blind Man's Journey to Climb Farther Than the Eye Can See by Erik Weihenmayer. Now, Erik is the first ever blind man to climb Mount Everest. And as I mentioned to you last week, he was a guest on my show on Vision Australia Radio. So down here in Oz, for my day job, I present a show on a network of 11 radio stations designed to serve the people living with blindness or low vision. See, I have to phrase these things very carefully. You can't just say blind people. It's not that anymore. You have to use all the right terms. So normally either we talk about an issue, be it this week the idea that the Toyota Prius, while electric cars are great for the environment and that, for people who can't see very well, myself included, they become your mortal enemy, your nemesis. And Toyota Priuses have tried to kill me many times because they don't make any noise. So when I'm crossing the road, I rely on sound a bit more. And then we have people who are high profile on. Erik is an American dude who was the first blind man ever to climb Mount Everest. And he was a great guest. So good a guest, in fact, that while watching Bill Maher interviewing Jay Leno the week before last, so as I was putting the show to air on Vision Australia Radio, Jay Leno, who's interviewed more people than anyone else on this planet, brought up only one interviewee during the course of the half-hour interview, and that was Erik. Have a listen.
And, Jay, I love it that you're not like, you have no, ego about, you climbed the mountain, you got to the top for a very long time. I've said many times you got fired twice for the crime of being...
Nobody cares if you climb the mountain. You talk about climbing a mountain. I'll tell you a climbing a mountain story. I had this guy in the Tonight Show.
You never let me ask one question.
Let me finish this. His guy is blind, and he climbed Mount Everest. The most amazing, he's an athlete, he's blind.
Who hasn't?
2 months, he's climbing Mount Everest. He's holding on, he doesn't know if it's daytime or night. It's rains.
Oh, boo-hoo.
So he's on my show, and I said during the break, do you do a lot of motivational speaking? He's all pissed off. I go, why? He goes, every motivational speaker, I talk about climbing Mount Everest and how hot it was and wind and snow. So you don't know if it's day or night. You don't know where you are on the mountain. You don't know how far. I've got to feel my way to the top. It took me 2 months, And he says, inevitably afterwards, when he does the meet and greet, somebody goes, I was going to climb Everest last year, but my kids got soccer and the wife wants to go to her mother-in-law. And he's like blind. He's like, I just want to stab these people. He's so furious. Hilarious.
So that clip is interesting. This book is about that very man, about Erik Weihenmayer. And it's the story of, well, initially it's his, what I call his superhero backstory. It's how he grew up and how he came to be the man with the drive to climb Mount Everest, even though he can't see anything. The reason I wanted you to read this book, this is an interesting one, Steve, because I found the first 3 hours or so of the book to be engrossing and at times harrowing. And then there's 8 hours where if you're into climbing mountains and stuff, then you will really enjoy it. So I asked you specifically to listen to the first 3 hours or so. How was it for you?
Oh, it was. I mean, you felt like you were him. I mean, the way he painted the picture of his, because he wasn't blind from birth, which I don't know. And this is probably a question for you. I don't know what would be more harrowing, actually, if you were born blind, and so you didn't I don't know. Would you have that sense of missing something?
Can
I don't know.
Can I answer that question? And the answer is, I unlike Eric, I was born blind, and my sight got, well, I say better, but to the state that it is now. And I feel very lucky that I'm not, well, we're all losing our sight to a certain degree, but that I'm not going through harrowing and traumatic sight loss. And I speak to a lot of people who have it, and the grief that brings. So as much as I get miserable and frustrated about things like I can't drive and I can't see in 3 dimensions, Steve, so I can't catch a ball. And you've seen me at work, and it's my nose pressed up against the screen. There's no dignity.
I just thought you were looking at really good pictures close up. You know, that's what it was, but I should have clocked.
So the answer is to that simple question, and the idea of talking about this book was so you could ask me silly questions like that. We could have a chat about it. Is I speak to quite a lot of people in the day job who lose their sight. I talk to people who've been blind all their lives, and I talk to people like me who have had minimal sight for all of their lives, and it's relatively stable. And to me, the very notion of if we're doing this by degrees, the idea of losing sight fills me with fear and dread. And because so it's something I tried to avoid talking about for most of it. It's like push the emotions down, Steve. If we ignore a problem long enough, it'll go away. And I used to be, when I worked with you, I used to work in relatively mainstream radio, and suddenly I got this gig. And now I have to talk about and bring out people's emotions on a topic that I try to avoid talking about all the time. So the simple answer to your question is, oh my God, no. I would hate to be confronted with the horror of losing my sight, and my personal experience, put in the political correct stuff, and everybody's experience is different. From my personal point of view, I feel so lucky that I'm not losing my sight, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. I didn't know that. I didn't know that about your backstory there.
My superhero backstory.
Your superhero backstory, because I know you do. I mean, you know, it's something we can really take for granted. You know, fully sighted. You know, you might sort of think, oh, actually, you know, things are a bit blurry. I better go for an eye. But you know,
when's the last time you went to? Hold on, here we go. When's the last time you went to the opticians?
Oh, 5-6 years ago.
Okay, so here's the thing. Here's something I've learned from my day.
I mean, I can't see a thing when I'm driving. You know. I'm only kidding, everyone. That's not true. That was just a dad joke alert there.
Yeah, it's a dad joke. Considering I'm about to give an important public health message. So there are 600,000 people in the United Kingdom who have glaucoma, which is a disease that basically means you've got raised pressure in your eyeballs. The people who are most susceptible, Steve, are people in their 40s. And if the pressure in your eye goes too high, then it will crush your optic nerve. And I spoke to a bloke earlier this year who was a high-flying partner at PricewaterhouseCoopers, about 43 years old, and he was blissfully unaware that he had lost 98% of his vision.
No. Because
the brain fills in the gaps. So, Steve, if I've learnt one thing, it's go down the optician, get your eye health checked. You know that bit where they go pfft, and blow a little bit of air in your eye. The reason for that is they're measuring the pressure in your eye. And as I say, there are 600,000 people in the UK, 150,000 in Australia who have it and don't know they have it. So go and get your eyes checked, basically.
I will, absolutely. I'm going to do that first thing in the morning, everybody, like you all should. Absolutely.
You're not, are you?
I mean, I'll do it. I've got a few things to do, but I will definitely call them and get an eye test and all the rest of it. And Wow. Yeah, I mean, you just going back to those first 3 hours of the book, and so basically, just for the benefit of everybody who hasn't listened to the book yet, first of all, please do. But also, secondly, the sections I was listening to was essentially him going from childhood to being told that he's got a progressively degenerating disease in his eye that meant there's no chance it is coming. He will go completely blind, up to the point where he does go completely blind. How he starts to cope with it at school and
as a teenager, that was the thing.
As a teenager, denying it, being angry about it, just going, I don't need to go on that, on that bus, with other people who've got similar problems, because I'm fine, or just refusing to do it because, not so long ago he could at least see things. He could see things. He could see the shapes of them, the colours of them, these sort of things. And I just imagine.
The interesting thing, sorry to cut across you, Steve, the interesting thing for me there, the harrowing bit actually happened before that all happens. And that is, and I spoke to Erik about it in the interview, we'll put a link in the description. But it's the whole thing about when, now that I'm a dad, when his mum found out, or his parents found out, there was something wrong with him as a baby. And he had to go through a whole series of diagnostic tests. And you can imagine the emotions as a parent of being handed your child and having all that joy, and then discovering that there's something wrong with its eyes. And of course, for me, that's exactly what happened to my mum in 1974. And again, it's something that I perhaps talk about at work because it brings other people out of their shells and gets them to tell their stories. It's a story that I tell perhaps more often. I don't think you've ever heard it. Than I would in normal life. So I had a little chat to Erik about his mum, but then, as you say, then he loses his sight at a time that's difficult enough already, isn't it, Steve? As discussed last week, we wouldn't be teenagers again if you paid us. But to imagine losing your sight during that period is yeah, as I say, as somebody who that's not the first time I've read that story, but I wonder what it feels like to you to come across stories like that for the first time. Is it as harrowing for you as it was for me?
Yes, I mean, I think because of the way the book's written, because of the way it's narrated as well, with going to the format, you feel like you are in his shoes. You kind of feel like you're metaphorically losing your sight with him, and how you kind of go through the sort of the feelings. Obviously, I don't have a frame of reference here, and I wouldn't purport to do to explain that. But it was as close to it painted such a vivid, sort of situation. The way he explained it, and actually using sound, using words, using descriptions, using the audio form, really. It was the only form you could actually really get a sense of it in because it's audio and not vision.
I think I disagree with you there. I think Erik, I didn't know. It's the second time I've interviewed Erik. I didn't know until I read this book that he'd actually spent time as an English and maths teacher in a primary school, and the writing feels to me very much. I mean, it surprised me how well he describes things. And when I read it, I go, I wouldn't have described it like that. And there's sort of a bit of the Robin Williams character in Dead Poets Society, that idea of the tweed-jacketed, patched-elbowed English teacher with a love of language in the way that he writes. And I really enjoyed that. I have to say, for me, the voice artist, I'm not casting asparagus on him. His name is Nick Sullivan, but I think he was hired to do the job. There are logistical issues to do with recording an audiobook that we're aware of. It's a long and time-consuming process. It's an even longer, more time-consuming process if you're doing it in Braille. Erik is... I always get nervous when... Erik is a much more fully rounded and engaging human being than the voice artist who's reading the book. The voice artist who's reading the book does no harm, But Erik, I always get nervous when I'm the world record holder for, or the first person to do this, first blind person to do this comes on the show. I mean, I've had them all on. The fastest motorcycle rider, man on two wheels. And he does lots of motivational speaking, and that always, I feel dread whenever somebody lists as part of their profession that they're a motivational speaker. And I said this to Erik the first time I interviewed him. And I said, look, the rest of us sitting at home probably not doing as much as other people who can, have more vision. You can hear I'm tiptoeing around it again. There's people, I'm not allowed to call them the normals, Steve. So you would be the normals. So we don't do as much as the normals. And then when all these people come along going, I'm even blinder than you and I've climbed Mount Everest, sometimes I find them slightly irritating.
Hang on, were you sitting there during this interview just really bitter the whole time and just...
That's how I sit here most days, Steve. I sit here totally bitter. But the wonderful thing was, in response to that, Erik's response to that was to tell me a story about how just an hour before speaking to me, he'd managed to... he deals with all the other stuff that people who can't see very well do, and he managed to spill an entire bottle of salad dressing up his fridge.
Oh wow, that's impressive.
It went everywhere. Apparently, it was of volcanic proportions, and he put me at my ease by telling me a story as the first blind man to climb Everest, that made him sound like a normal human being with the vulnerabilities that perhaps my audience on what I do on the other thing feels. So he's a very engaging gentleman. So him, I'm sorry he wasn't reading it. I understand why. I think the person reading it does a good enough job, considering I know the person. You, not really being familiar with Erik, thought that the narrator did a good enough job.
Yeah, I didn't have the frame at the time. I didn't have the frame of reference actually hearing Erik's voice. Once I heard Erik's voice, I think now you've made that point. Yeah, I'd flip flop and I'd agree with you actually, because I mean I can't. It's actually an interesting point actually. How long do you reckon it would have taken Erik to read the book himself in Braille versus a sighted person?
There's an interesting thing, and I don't know what Erik's Braille reading is like, but my experience of watching people read Braille is that it's not as smooth a process, and I'm prepared to be harangued and proven wrong on this and told that I don't know what I'm talking about, but there's a bit where the majority of people that I've seen reading Braille, the connection between eyes, brain and mouth, as opposed to the connection between fingertips, brain and mouth, the connection isn't as immediate or as solid. So you often find that some people who read Braille, and again, I'm couching this in all the terms, I'm trying not to offend anybody as I do in my day job. So it doesn't sound as fluid when people are reading from Braille. However, a lot of blind people remember stuff off by heart. I actually asked Erik to record a quote from the book for me, and he could remember the sentence that he'd written 5 years ago or whenever this book came out. So, and he remembered it better than I did.
Those things I could not do, I would let go. Those things that I could do, I would learn to do well.
So, the upside of that is a good bit of memory. There's a weird thing I've discovered. There is a fair portion of the blind or low vision population who sort of have dyslexia of the finger. So not all blind people can read Braille. For some people, it just doesn't work. The idea of reading groups of six indentations on a page, whatever. I'm trying not to say pricks or knobs.
I'll have to bleep that.
Yeah, bleep that. 6 indentations on a page it just doesn't work for some people. So I don't know what the science of that is. Again, prepared if any of our listeners want to use the hashtag Audiobook Club and throw stones at me or tell me I'm wrong, then that's absolutely fine. But let's sum up, shall we?
Let's sum up. Who wants to sum up first?
Do you know what? I want you to sum up, because I normally do most of the opining here, but I put this book in front of you because I wanted to hear your opinion.
I'd be, there's a couple of things I'd like to glean before we close this podcast out, if that's okay, and if you're comfortable talking about them, of course, as well, Matt.
Oh, very good. Yes. You've been on the training course, haven't you?
Well, that's our past. But from the first 3 hours I heard, and not, I mean, it's I guess I don't know if it's glib or what have you, to focus on the, as we've spoken about, the kind of impending doom, if you like, of losing your sight and all the feelings that, and all the trials and tribulations that come with that. But there are a lot of life affirming moments as well that I found, with his wrestling and things. There's humour in there, isn't there? There's lots of humour. There's lots of humour, and also his attitude to life. You already got a sense of him, constantly grazing himself and cutting himself and bumping into things and injuring himself. But always at every turn getting up, dusting himself down and carrying on, because for example, with the playing basketball, he couldn't catch the ball or whatever, or he was riding his bike and just went head over heels over the handlebars or whatever. But he still, there was some inspirational passages that I found, how he dealt with. And very struck by what he said about when he lost his mum. How he said it was twice as devastating as losing his sight. And that's something we'll all go through, of course. And he just seemed like someone who had an inner strength, a huge inner strength, is what I found. I wouldn't want to share a flat with him. It's quite. I should imagine he's not the easiest person to live with. He does show. People talk about resilience these days. His resilience is genuine. When he had difficulty, pitching a tent, he said, "I don't want to be taken to the top of." I said to him, it could be argued that you were a burden to the other people in your team climbing Everest. He said, "Look, I didn't want to be a burden. I didn't want to be taken up the mountain and spiked like a football on the top of it and everybody else cheered. I wanted to be part of the team." And he goes on to say that, there would have been some people driving past on the American equivalent of the A40 where he lives, seeing a blind man in a field constantly putting up and taking down a tent because he wanted to practice it with gloves on, because he wanted to be able to do that for himself, or cook a meal, or carry, he's physically, he's in top condition. He's an athlete, so he would carry other people's bags when they got a bit tired. It is a story of superhuman endurance and resilience, the book as a whole. The interesting thing I wanted to ask you, Steve, is I'm not sure the full 11 hours is for anybody who's not interested in climbing. Would you be happy to spend a credit for the experience of the first few chapters? Yes, I think I would. I think it was a really well written book. I enjoyed the way it was delivered. I enjoyed the storytelling, and I think actually you can take some learning from it as well. So I think it's harking back to last week. It's quite a good, actually, a little bit of a self-help book. When all your chips are down, and even when they're not just down, but someone's taken away your chips. You can press on. You can. A seagull, maybe. If a metaphorical seagull comes swooping down and takes your metaphorical chips, then don't despair. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Seagulls here. The local slang term is chip chook, where chook normally means chicken. They're basically referred to as chip chickens. Yeah, when I first heard that, I couldn't get my head around it when it was said on Neighbours all those years ago. I was like, chooks, what the earth are those chooks? God rest its soul. I have a question for you, Matt, and I was struck by something you said at the start, because we haven't really talked about your work with the radio stations in Australia, and you talk about how you now have to talk about the subject you didn't really want to talk about now. How do you feel? Because you talk about you're discussing all this stuff with people to put them at their ease. The guests you see through the door all the time. But how do you feel now, having had to talk about it and face it? First of all, I'm grateful to have a job. When we moved to Australia, me as a trailing spouse, I was unemployed for over 2 years, and I couldn't get arrested, basically. And a job advert appeared, and it said,
we're looking for a radio producer and presenter. And I went, oh yeah, that's me. We're looking for somebody with commercial and community radio experience. I went, oh, that's an unusual combination. I've got that. I've run a community radio station and worked for big companies. I know how to do all that. I went, this job's going to be based in bloody Sydney, isn't it? And I can't go there because the kids are in school. Can be based in Adelaide or Melbourne. At which point I sort of went, okay, I'll apply for this. And then something I've never seen in an ad before, applications from candidates with a vision impairment are encouraged. And at that point I went, don't stuff it up, except the word wasn't stuff, for about 2 weeks. And then I got the job. So I'm grateful. Whenever I go for a job interview, Steve, there's, if it's a half-hour job interview, I know that I've got to put some time at the end to go, yeah, look, I know you think I'm stoned. I'm not. I've got an eyesight condition, and that's why my eyes are wandering all over the room. Here's what I can do. Here's what I can't do. I hope you'll still consider me. Well, any other candidate is still just talking about how good they are. So you know, getting jobs is hard. Nobody's going to give me a job as a taxi driver or a sushi chef. So certain things are cut off to me. So really grateful to be employed, and a great employer, the equivalent of the RNIB in the UK or the NFB in the States. I have to say, I do just sometimes wish I could do a show about gardening or something I know nothing about. I'd rather not be the expert in this particular topic, and some weeks, particularly with, people who are going through a traumatic time and are very bravely telling their stories, I do find it a little wearing, particularly as, in order to create an atmosphere of trust, sometimes I have to lay myself bare in a way to make them feel comfortable. So yeah, well sensed, Steve. There is first of all, incredibly grateful to be employed, really grateful to everybody I've worked with, but yeah, sometimes I just wish I could do a show about gardening.
You still can. You just ask the questions. Just ask the questions. That's what you do. You just go, I can do a show about anything. Yeah, we both can do a show about anything. Just play dumb. And in some cases, in most cases, 99% of the cases, we will be genuinely dumb.
Well, it turns out we might be about to do a show on cricket in a couple of weeks. So, it's almost the same.
There you go. And so the loop is closed. There we go. We've come full circle with the cricket thing.
Mm. By the way,
yeah,
we haven't done this, but yes, it's a great book. You said that you would happily drop a credit for the experience of the first 3 hours and chapters, because it is that deeply emotionally penetrating. If you like climbing, then buy 2 copies, because you will enjoy the story of the adventure, all 11 hours of the book. But yeah, I think we used the word resilience. If you're having a sad day, don't read it. I think you need to be feeling quite tough. If you feel you can handle that kind of story and want to learn about it, and you are feeling strong in yourself, then do drop a credit on this book.
Right then. So it's a thumbs up, or depending on your point of view then.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Sounds good to me. So if our listener wishes to play along, what should they be reading next, Mr. Layton?
This week sees the release of Anthony Horowitz's The Twist of a Knife. It's the 4th book in his Hawthorne series of detective novels. It came out on Thursday, the 18th of August. I love these books. Anthony Horowitz is the only man to have been trusted by both the Fleming estate and the Conan Doyle estate to write a James Bond book and a Sherlock Holmes book, respectively. That's how I came to him. And what he's now done is write a series of murder mysteries. And basically, as he puts it himself, well, we've run out of, different types of detective to put in the middle of a book. So you've had your Belgian detective, you've had your African detective, you've had your alcoholic middle-aged detective, you've had your female alcoholic middle-aged detective. So what he's done very cleverly is put himself in the center of the organizations, and it's almost like he doesn't want to be there. The books are written that Anthony Horowitz as himself appears in these books, and some of the meetings he's in take place with his publishers in his publishers building in Victoria. And this is the fourth in the series. He and his partner in crime, a former Metropolitan Police officer, have solved 3 crimes so far. Apparently this one is one of those locked room dramas. I'm looking forward to getting stuck into it. It's called Anthony Horowitz is The Twist of a Knife. And while that one's fresh and new, the following week, I would like very much for us to have that discussion we mentioned earlier about, does everything we do on Audiobook Club need to be shiny and new? The Miles Jupp book you gave me, I've got lots to say about that. And also, the universe is pointing us towards a book that comedian Lee Mack wrote in 2012. But, I mean, you came across this, didn't you, Steve? You were quite irritated by this book. You were irritated by the first line in it, weren't you?
Well, yeah. Well, yes. The reason being is that it dropped into my, I was looking through Audible and new releases and so on, and I just saw Lee Mack's autobiography, and I thought, oh, hello, this will be, because he's fun. I really love him as a comedian. He's very funny, and the first, and I was thinking it's brand new, and then the first sentence he says is, I wrote this book 10 years ago, basically, and here it is, me reading it. I've just got round to reading it, is what it came across as. And I was like thinking, well, there might be, I think he's put some added material in there to kind of bring it up to date, which I think is obviously the good thing. But if I had bought an audiobook of a book that had only just been recorded but released 10 years ago, and it's an autobiography as well, so there's 10 years of life and stories and stuff we might not have had, then I would have been aggrieved. But I think, from what I understand, it's been brought right up to date, so I think it's still worth a squiz.
And I don't feel the same way as you, so let's have a conversation about that in a couple of weeks' time, perhaps doing both of those books at once, and invite our audience to participate. And maybe notes from the margin can be, do audiobooks on Audiobook Club need to be new?
Indeed, we'll have a genial adversarial chat. Yes, adversarial, but in a cordial, genial, very English way. Sir, I think you will find
I am being more tolerant than you in this discussion. I think you're an idiot, but I'm not going to show you. That kind of idea.
Sir, you're without doubt the worst cad in London or Adelaide.
I think you'll find.
I think you'll find. Oh, I for one. If you say I think you'll find, I'll say I for one, because that's what I see on the forums when people say they're not going to watch a TV show anymore because they don't like the first 5 minutes of it.
And when I consider that the argument is over, I will go, moving forward.
Anyway, that really long stretched anyway as well. Anyway, let's move on from that, because I'm right and you're wrong.
As I say with my wife and family, and you've experienced it here, I just shout, next slide!
Next slide. The ubiquitous next slide. So there we go. That was Touch the Top of the World, A Blind Man's Journey to Climb Farther Than the Eye Can See by Erik Weihenmayer. It's narrated by Nick Sullivan. Published by Blackstone Audio, comes in at 11 hours and 18 minutes. So that's this week's book. Tell us what you thought. Use the hashtag Audiobook Club as ever. You can also catch the little 3-minute version on Maritime Radio as well if you're in the Greenwich, South East London and North West Kent area, or indeed globally via TuneIn Radio. So there we go. There's the hit.
That's
for the
your
radio
day
station.
job.
That's they say bit or one of them.
For the moment, yeah.
For the moment, yes,
Until
exactly.
they work it out.
Until I get discovered. So yeah,